Mets got cooked, man. Mets got cooked. One of the weirdest, most just miserable, mind-numbing seasons I've ever watched as a Mets fan. I've been a fan of this team for like 30 years, and this is one of the worst seasons I can remember. There is plenty of blame to go around for this team, but I will say, on a payroll note, the guys the Mets paid the most money to, Lindor, Alonso, Soto, Diaz, Nimmo, they were all really, really good. It sucks that Pete and Diaz are probably going to be free agents, and we'll see how that all plays out. But, I know that there's a lot about the Mets having the highest payroll ever in the history of the universe. But on that note, I feel like the guys that they spent most of the money on played really well. Unfortunately, the aspect of filling in the gaps, the winning on the margins, which this team did so well in 2024, they did so poorly in 2025. And I am a big David Stearns supporter. I think that what he did in Milwaukee was primarily built on the farm system, and so he's literally only been here for 2 years. Hard to build a good farm system in 2 years. The Mets do have a pretty strong farm system, but in terms of guys that Stearns has drafted and helped develop, it's pretty fresh, it's pretty new. And so, if you are someone that is trying to see the bigger picture here, that's going to take 5 years, give or take. It just feels like can't really evaluate that aspect of David Stearns' tenure here so far within the first couple of years. That being said, I think we are all very rightfully so inclined to question a lot of the things Stearns did this year. The Frankie Montas signing, I think almost anyone could have told you was a terrible idea for a pitcher who's usually injured, and when he's healthy, quote unquote, if that's even happened in the last several years, he's not good. I don't understand the Frankie Montas thing. I didn't understand basically giving him $40 million for 2 years. I thought was insane. The fact that it didn't work out is not surprising. Stearns essentially sent $40 million on fire. You will not see Montas pitch again for the Mets. His Mets career is over. AJ Minter, really good, great pitcher. Again, injured. Can't do much about that. When he's healthy, he's lights out. When he's not healthy, you're just missing one of the best eighth inning guys / potential closers in baseball. So that really sucks, and it sucked to lose a lefty that early on in the season. But there were just look, I can't get into the Helsley thing. I don't know what happened. He's one of these guys that maybe just, can't play in New York. Cedric Mullins, I knew 100% was not going to be good on the Mets. He's a streaky player in general, and so you're trading for a streaky player that basically only has 6 weeks to figure it out, and he, just couldn't quite figure it out. Now, I will say, he was better against lefties. Every single chance Mendy got, he did not play Cedric Mullins against lefties, which I don't get it. I don't get it. If we're talking about who's making the lineups, who's running the analytics department on this team, I don't see how Mendy is not the one making the lineup. How you could have that information and choose to go against it every single time is crazy to me. And so while there is plenty of blame to go on Mullins just going ice cold for 2 months, he was also not really put in chances for success, which is frustrating as a fan because we have access to this information. So the Mets have access to this information. So the fact that the guy making the lineups every day is doing the opposite is kind of nuts. Tyler Rogers, he can go. I was a Tyler Rogers fan. I thought it was a good trade. I know they gave up a lot of names. I didn't think they necessarily gave up very good players, but this guy, every time he came in, it was a dink and a dunk and then a 2-run single. And, you thought you were building this super bullpen to at least help the fact that this rotation, which I'll get to in a second, to help the fact that this rotation was so bad, barely ever getting through even 5 innings, let alone 6, 7. It didn't work, man. Every time these guys came in, it was just gasoline all over the place, setting the game on fire. And man, oh man, the starting pitching. When the season started, if you looked at that graphic of Griffin Canning and Tyler McGill, Clay Holmes, who was good. The Clay Holmes experiment did work, but it worked for a guy who should have been a number 5 starter on a team with decent starting pitching. It doesn't work for a guy who was the opening day starter for the Mets. That's crazy. Clay Holmes, experiment worked. You got a great start, or a decent starting pitcher for $12 million a year. That is very cheap for starting pitching, but he's a number 5 guy. maybe, 4 or 5 innings, maybe 6, I guess, if the season's on the line against the Marlins. Mostly a 5-inning guy, and it worked. But the other guys, Sean Manaea, Kodai Senga, who we thought should have been the ace of the team. Kodai Senga finished the season in the minor leagues. When it came down to a do or die scenario, the Mets did not think Kodai Senga could be on the major league roster. They did not see any value in having him on the major league team. That is a huge problem headed into 2026. And I think that's what's crazy about the way this year ended. I mean, I've been a Mets fan for a long time, so, it's hard to get mad or rant about this team. It was frustrating, and, we had 3-month-long collapse, meltdown, whatever you want to call it. Most of this rotation is under contract for next year. So, I don't doubt, I saw the David Stearns press conference. I don't doubt that there are going to be changes, right? If maybe Peterson is packaged in a deal, maybe they try to get out from under the Manaea contract, although I don't know who's taking a guy who was hurt most of the year, and when he was healthy, quote unquote, he was awful, literally batting practice. What did he pitch in the final game of the season? 2 innings? Most of these guys are coming back. Holmes is coming back. Manaea, Peterson, Senga, I think will start the year in the major leagues. I don't know. McLean is probably starting in the big leagues. Sproat, I feel like deserves it, if anything, because he's just one of the better options. Tong, a lot of potential, clearly not ready. Was never supposed to come up this year anyway, so I can't get too mad at him. Came up, not ready. Thrown into the most high-pressure games you could possibly put a 22-year-old rookie into, which is the same thing that the Mets did with Francisco Alvarez in 2021, 2022. Weird decision for player development, but I know they called up Tong because things were falling apart. Now, on that note, any Mets fan, I think, could tell you they were not going to make the playoffs. If they did make the playoffs, it was embarrassing that one of these other teams that is just not very good managed to overtake them. I think back in, I want to say July or August, I don't know, they were up 6-0 against the Braves. 3rd inning, 4th inning, they end up losing the game. That's when I texted my friend. I was just like, hey, it's over. Season's over. I have seen enough. This team, good teams, do not lose these kinds of games this often. The Mets lost so many games when they had a lead after 4 or 5 innings, or they had a 5-6 run lead, or they were up in the 9th inning or whatever. Good teams don't lose 7 games in a row 3 times in the same season. And I'll tell you what else. Good teams do not go, and this is one of the most insane statistics I heard at the end of the season. The Mets were 0-70 when trailing after 8 innings. That is unfathomably bad. The thought that you could lose every single time that you went into the 9th inning trailing is crazy. And it's even crazier because I watched a lot of baseball this year for the Mets, and there were so many games that they could have won after trailing after 8 innings. So seeing that statistic and knowing, remembering several of them, whether it's against the Dodgers or the Guardians, the Nationals, games that they could have won and didn't. And seeing how much this team struggled with guys on base, which is crazy because the offense ended up being top 5 in baseball in WRC plus or OPS plus, or whatever it is. It reminds me of the 2020 Mets, who had one of the most offensively good teams in the shortened season and just didn't make the playoffs. And it feels like another one of those years. This team had 4 guys at the top of the lineup that had great seasons. Lindor, just put him down for 30-30. He is money for a 30-30 year. Alonso, not quite the power hitter that I think maybe we thought he would be, with 45 home runs, 50 home runs, what guys like Schwarber are doing. But seems like you can pencil him in for 270, 35 home runs, 150 RBIs or whatever. Juan Soto is Juan Soto. If you think Juan Soto was part of the problem, stop watching baseball. This idea that, he's not good in the clubhouse and Stop it. I understand. Plenty of teams have won championships without Juan Soto. But usually when Juan Soto is on your team does better. Unless it's the Mets, in which case I don't know. Maybe we're cursed. I truly don't understand what the Mets did or what I did in a previous lifetime to deserve this sort of treatment from the baseball gods. For as much fun as we had in 2024, it just was the total opposite of 2025. And I think as I've gotten older as a fan, watching baseball, it's time consuming. We all have lives, we have jobs, responsibilities. So I'm looking for a feeling where my time is valued or it feels like a good use of my time. And this Mets team, even the games that they won, they just didn't feel like satisfying. They didn't feel like good wins. They never seemed to lead to any sort of momentum. I think we had one decent winning streak, but pretty much canceled out because we lost 7 games or more in a row 3 separate times this year. A friend of mine and I went to a game where Jonah Tong was his first start. Mets won. They scored like 19 runs or something. But in the 9th inning of the game, Carlos Mendoza puts in Luis Torrens, who gives up like 5 home runs in a row, then goes to Ryan Stanek, who gets out of the game. But it just felt like we were watching like beer league softball in a Major League Baseball game, and they won, but it was just like, this is like a sloppy way to finish the game. It just felt like a not good win. It was fun to see all the offense, and Tong was great, one of the few times that he was this season, but it just, the win felt weird. It's fair to be mad. It's fair to be pissed off at David Stearns for having so many misses. I think, oddly, one of the biggest was not bringing back Jose Quintana essentially for free. I think he got like $3 million from the Brewers and gave them 150 innings. We got injured towards the end of the year, but like, are we kidding? We were throwing Tyler McGill. We started Justin Hageman and Huascar Brazaban, who spent half the year in the minor leagues, started like 5 games for us, which is, it's crazy. I don't know. And I think also what's frustrating is like this felt like the organization is not as in lockstep with one another as maybe we thought they were. It felt like there were a lot of times when Carlos Mendoza was given certain weapons to use and just didn't really know what to do with them. And then it also felt like David Stearns, who, is a very smart baseball mind. But the Mets are making roster moves on the last day of the season. They're like calling guys up and sending guys down. And it's like, dude, how is the roster not set by like the last series of the year? That's, for a team that's trying to like make the playoffs, that's crazy to me. And a lot of what the Mets did this year, look, I've heard it all as a fan. Everybody, let's all dunk on the Mets. I get it. They missed the playoffs, blah, blah, blah. Like, I think I'd still rather be the Mets than the Pirates, who don't even try to win, or the Rockies, who don't even try to win, and whose owners just seemingly get free passes every single year. But I get it. It's really frustrating. They spent a ton of money. The players they spent it on played great. The rest of the guys just weren't even competitive. And maybe they could have survived some of these players if other ones had stepped up. But when Senga, Peterson, Minaya, and for a reasonable stretch, Clay Holmes was also pretty bad. That's like almost your whole rotation. I don't know how any team combats that. You can't score 25 runs a game. The Mets were having so many innings where they just couldn't get the last out. It felt like we would have these games where the other team, we're going back and forth, right? 2-1, 3-2. And then all of a sudden the other team scores 8 runs in the 4th inning. And you're like, oh, I guess it's over. Because the Mets never come back. They had like a couple comeback wins this year. It was a weird season. The whole Cohen 5-year World Series thing, that was dumb. Obviously, you shouldn't have said that. Now we're in the David Stearns era, so we'll see how that goes. I think that, you probably should bring back Alonso and Diaz, but I also get that it's a lot of money to commit in 2 guys who were already on a team that didn't do very well. Now, granted, they were also on the 2024 team, which did really well, but I get it. You can't spend $300 million on your payroll every single year. Eventually it catches up to you, unless, I guess, you're the Dodgers or the Yankees, who seem to do it with no issues. So, I don't know, man. It was a weird season. I don't feel like, I feel a sense of relief that it's over. I really didn't look forward to these Mets games, and I felt like when this season ended, I had already known it was over. I already knew we weren't making the playoffs unless the Reds finished under 500, or literally unless like every team below the Mets in the wild card finished under 500, the Mets were not going to make the playoffs. It truly would have needed to be an absolute garbage National League with only 3 teams in the wild card finishing above 500 for the Mets to make it. And it just, there's a part of me that's like, thank God. Thank God it's over. The Mets don't need to get embarrassed against the Dodgers. I know that in the playoffs anything can happen, and I'm sure the Reds now will go to the World Series and probably win because everyone's doubting them. But the Mets, they had so many issues that I don't need to see them exposed further on national TV with everyone being like, how did this team make the playoffs? I don't need it, and we'll look forward to 2026 and see what happens. The Mets have a strong farm system. We saw this year they have a lot of very talented pitching prospects. Where is this team even without McLean, right? The Reds probably clinched the third wild card 2 weeks ago if McLean isn't on the Mets. So, Sproat, McLean, Tong, hopefully they'll all be here next year, and just keep building. We'll see what happens. I get the frustration, but, being part of generationally terrible seasons full of heartbreak and meltdowns is just kind of what you sign up for as a Mets fan. So there's always next year.